What happens when a wounded puma cries by the side of a highway and the only man who stops becomes her only hope? He thought he was rescuing her. What happened next forced an entire state to confront its own cruelty. You know those days when you just want to get the hell home, kick off your boots, and forget you exist for a while? That was me. I just finished a 3-day patrol in the Colorado backcountry, the kind of trip that gives your joints PTSD. My back hurt in places I didn't even know had nerves. All I wanted was coffee, something microwaved and regretful, and to fall asleep watching reruns of MASH. Instead, I got a crying puma. Yep. A full-grown mountain lion curled up by the side of a sun-baked road like a forgotten rug, making sounds no apex predator should ever make. If you've never heard a wildcat cry, and I don't mean your neighbor's tabby having an existential crisis, let me tell you, it'll freeze something inside you. It wasn't a growl, it wasn't a roar, it was grief. That low, guttural mourning that no human words could touch. So what did I do? I stopped. Because apparently, I make terrible decisions when exhausted. I pulled over my forest green truck, the kind of government-issued vehicle that rattles like a bag of old bones, and stepped out, slow and cautious. My name's Marcus Hale, Ranger, Wildlife Response. Mediator between civilization and everything it tries to bulldoze. I didn't reach for my weapon. I reached for the med kit and gloves. That should tell you what kind of day it was. She looked at me with those wide, golden eyes. Not challenging, not threatening, just defeated. Her right front paw was caught in an old trap, the rusty, illegal kind some backwoods bonehead probably left out to catch predators. Real poetic, right? Predator trapped by someone playing God in camo and beer breath. There was blood. Not dramatic Hollywood blood. Just enough to soak the fur and crust at the edges, enough to tell me it had been hours, maybe longer. And still, she didn't run. She didn't even growl. She just watched me like she was deciding whether to trust one last time or give up entirely. I crouched, muscles tensed. "Hey there, girl," I said softly, like I was talking to a neighbor's dog, not a 120-pound feline that could end me in 3 seconds if she changed her mind. "Let's see if we can fix this mess." Unclipping that trap was like playing a twisted game of Operation. My hands were sweating. The metal was jammed and angry. But finally, click. It snapped open with a nasty little jerk, and her paw flopped free. She whimpered. Honest to God, whimpered. And then, something shifted. Her head turned sharply, ears twitching toward the brush beside the road. I froze. That kind of alertness means one of 2 things in my line of work, backup or babies. She shifted, tried to rise, failed. I followed her gaze, stomach clenched. I stepped past the bush line, and there it was. 3 cubs, no bigger than a toaster, twitching and squealing in the shade. One of them, the runt, barely moved. Its breath was shallow, chest rising like a paper bag in the wind. My heart sank like a rock in a pond. They'd been out here for hours, maybe overnight, exposed, dehydrated, starving. You think you're ready for this kind of thing until you're standing over a dying baby with a mother who trusted you enough to lead you to it. I wrapped them in my field blanket. Light, warm, scent neutral. And yeah, covered in trail coffee and failure. I tucked the babies beside their mom in the back seat, propped up with every spare sweatshirt I owned. She didn't resist. She just watched me. The look she gave? That wasn't wild. That was maternal. I radioed in to Wildlife Rehab, 30 miles out. They said hold tight. I said no chance. I was moving. I don't leave babies dying by the side of the road. Not on my watch. 15 minutes in, the situation turned. Rearview mirror, dust, fast-moving truck behind me, no plates. I muttered, "Of course." Because why not? The only thing missing from this rodeo was human garbage. They tailed me for a minute before flashing their brights. I slowed down, trying to keep things civil. Big mistake. I pulled over. They pulled over. Out came 2 men, Real winners, camouflage shirts, buzz cuts, that confident walk people have when they know the law hasn't touched them in a long time. One of them called out, "That our cat you got there?" I stepped out, blocking the back door. "She's injured. Protected species. I'm transporting her to rehab." He laughed. Like I told him I believed in unicorns. "The hell you are," he said. "That cat's ours. We tracked her yesterday. You don't get to play hero with our property." Property. Like she was a lawnmower. I knew where this was going. I reached for my phone, opened the camera. "You're being recorded," I said. "Federal ground. I'm an officer of the park." "Yeah?" The taller one spit in the dirt. "Let's see if your phone bleeds when I break your jaw." No bluff, no warning. His fist came in hard. My head snapped back like a carnival target. I hit the gravel, phone still rolling. And just like that, my normal day became the kind of thing you only read about, until you're the one lying in the dirt, watching two strangers walk toward the back of your truck, where 3 helpless cubs and 1 injured mother wait. That was when the air changed. She moved. That's where it all started. But what happened next? That changed everything. You don't want to miss how this story flips the world on its head. You ever stare at someone and realize they've done this before, hurt things, threatened people, walked away clean, and they actually think they're the good guys? That was these two. Camouflage camo, steel-toed boots, that smug face that says, "I shoot things because I can." One of them even had a deer skull tattooed across his neck. Because nothing says emotional maturity like inked bones on your throat. I was on the ground, gravel digging into my ribs, my jaw already swelling. My phone lay a few feet away, still recording. The taller guy, neck skull, let's call him, stepped toward my truck like he was inspecting a used grill at a yard sale. His buddy, short and mean, kept an eye on me. "You think people like you fix anything? Tree huggers with badges. Newsflash, no one gives a damn about mountain cats." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about the Puma. It was about control, power. Guys like this don't trap for food or out of fear. They trap because they think everything out here belongs to them. Trees, land, animals, even silence. And God help you if you interrupt that fantasy. I struggled to my feet, heartbeat like a war drum. My lip was bleeding and my head throbbed. But my legs worked. That was enough. "Step away from the truck," I said. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. Neck skull smirked. "Or what?" Then she roared. You've never heard that kind of sound unless you've stood a few feet away from a mother who thinks her children are in danger. It was a gut punch of a noise, primal, full of pain and warning. The back of my truck rocked slightly as she shifted. For a second, just one breath, both men hesitated. "She's wounded," I said. "She won't let you take them, and neither will I." They didn't answer, just looked at each other like two kids deciding whether to break the last window or run. And then, a miracle in a siren. Flashing lights down the highway, a government green patrol jeep coming in hot. Tires skidded, door slammed. Out stepped Ranger John Green, 45, hard-shelled, no nonsense, and the last guy you want showing up when you're caught breaking 3 federal laws before breakfast. "Step back, now." His voice didn't shout. It cut. Neck skull froze. Short and mean lifted his hands halfway, but kept sneering. "You boys really want to finish this on camera?" Green gestured toward the phone still recording. "I'd love to hand that over with the arrest report." They didn't fight. Not because they were afraid, but because they were arrogant enough to believe they'd get out of it. You could see it in their eyes. They thought this would go away like it always did. Slap on the wrist, hunting license suspended for a month. Boo-hoo. While Green secured them in the back of his Jeep, I climbed into mine. My hands shook as I grabbed the steering wheel. The Puma was lying still again, one paw over her cubs, her body curled around them like a shield. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. That look earlier? The the one full of grief. Now it held something else, trust, which somehow made the weight on my shoulders 10 times heavier. Back on the road, I radioed ahead to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. They said they were prepped. I floored it. The center looked like a rundown ranch to the untrained eye. Chipped paint, gravel drive, old trailers. But it was a sanctuary. And when I carried those cubs inside, bundled in my arms like someone else's future, they didn't ask questions. They moved fast. Vets took the mother, set up fluids, examined her paw, called it severe tissue trauma, the polite way of saying she might not walk right again. One of the cubs needed oxygen. Another couldn't keep its eyes open. The smallest one, the runt, hadn't made a sound since we left the road. I stood in the hallway, leaning against cold tile, watching people move. My shirt was crusted in dried blood and dust. I felt like the road had driven me over. Then the deputy arrived. He wore the uniform like a man who'd seen too much and slept too little. Name tag said Daniels. He walked in holding a folder and a tired expression. "You the one who recorded that video?" I nodded. "Good. You're going to want to hang on to that. Those two idiots? They've got history. We've been trying to pin them for months, always too slippery. But now we've got proof." He opened the file and showed me pictures. Other traps. Other animals. Some not lucky enough to be found alive. I looked at those photos and felt my gut twist into something hot and bitter. "Can I go public with it?" I asked. Daniels didn't flinch. "You should." That night, I sent the video to one reporter I trusted, a local woman named Megan who cared more about truth than clicks. She published it within hours. It went viral in 6. People were outraged. Some demanded arrests. Some offered donations. Some wrote letters begging to adopt the cubs. But I wasn't celebrating, because we weren't done. Not by a long shot. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for, it's right here. Stick around to see how the tables finally turn, and what it really means to protect the wild. 2 weeks passed. Not quietly, not gently. The kind of 2 weeks where the world spins faster than it should, and people who never gave a second thought to wildlife were suddenly wearing Save the Mountain Mother t-shirts, like she was their personal cause. You'd think I'd be pleased. I wasn't. Because while everyone was reposting clips of me bleeding on gravel while a puma stood guard like a queen in fur, I was watching that queen fight for her life in a rehab cage, and she was losing. Her body had given up before she had. That's the cruel thing about injuries like hers. The pain shows up long after the cameras stop rolling. Blood poisoning, nerve damage, fever spikes that made her too weak to even growl. The cubs were recovering, eating, growing, even playing with each other in that clumsy way baby animals do, all tangled legs and wide-eyed wonder. But they didn't understand. They just saw their mother sleeping too much, moving too little. And me? I was stuck between 2 nightmares, one where the world didn't care and one where it pretended to. The guys who attacked me? Formally charged, but don't throw a parade just yet. They made bail the same day. Walked out of jail like they'd just paid a parking ticket. One of them even smirked for the press. "Just a misunderstanding," he said to a local news crew. "We're hunters, not criminals." I almost swallowed my own teeth. Then something shifted. Someone found their social media, photos of illegal traps, dead animals posed like trophies, captions that read like bad punchlines. It wasn't just evidence. It was ammunition. Activists picked it up. Lawyers got involved. State wildlife officials opened an investigation into how these guys got away with so much for so long. Spoiler, the answer rhymed with money and nobody paying attention. Meanwhile, the Puma, we called her Sierra, had one last hill to climb. The vet told me she had 3 options: heal, survive, but never walk properly, or fade. I didn't like any of those odds. So I stayed. Every day. Every night I wasn't on patrol. I was in that center, reading reports, helping clean enclosures, feeding cubs, even when they bit me with their tiny saber-tooth impressions. And Sierra watched. Always watched. Until one morning, she stood. Not perfectly, not gracefully. But she got up, one paw still stiff, the back leg trembling, but she rose like a ghost that had been waiting for the right moment to return. People say animals don't remember. Those people have never looked a wild cat in the eye after you've held her bleeding child in your arms. That same week, the center announced she was stable enough to begin short reintroduction training. Nothing fancy, just a test to see how she moved, hunted, reacted to scent. The cubs would follow. That's how it works. Mom leads, babies learn. And they did. Fast forward 6 more weeks. The press had moved on to the next outrage. Donations had slowed. But Sierra and her cubs, they were ready, leaner, stronger, wild again. I was the one who opened the gate. We took them deep into protected land. No roads, no tourists, no trail signs. Just forest and instinct. Sierra didn't rush. She stepped out slow, turned once to look back, and for a second it felt like a goodbye. Not the soft tear-jerker kind, but a you did your part, now stay out of mine kind. The cubs followed her into the trees. We didn't clap. We didn't film it. We let it be what it was, sacred. Back at the center, I found one last letter waiting for me. Handwritten, no return address. It read, "You saved more than a Puma. You exposed a system, now fix it." I didn't recognize the handwriting, but I recognized the truth in it. That's why I kept going. Not for the headlines, not for the likes, for Sierra, for the next ranger, for every creature that cries by the road and waits for someone to care enough to come closer. Because out here, the wild remembers, and so do we.